In 1998, Jay Couhglan, a successful businessman, went hunting and drinking with his father. He drove home drunk and got in a terrible accident. His father didn't survive. Jay's life became a nightmare. After grieving his father and serving jail time, he was determined to rebound. Jay says anyone can turn their life around after failure if they make the right decisions. In his book, 5 Bold Choices, Jay shares how to rise above whatever circumstances are facing you and reclaim your life.
Well, Jay is with us now live, and let's get right to it. I mean, here you are. I would imagine you thought your life was over.
I don't even know what I thought. I just know I was in a terrible spot. And I wasn't, my wife described it as looking at me and not seeing anything in my eyes. I was gone. I wasn't coming back. Mm-hmm. So I describe it as with no foundation in any kind of faith. I was just spiraling out of control. And I was just in a hospital bed, and there was nowhere for me to go. And so I was just being tormented. And that's where I was. I would not wish that on anybody. Mm-hmm. I was responsible for my dad's death, and I knew that. And therefore, everything else was just noise, and it was just stuff in the distance. It was like my wife was talking to me, but I couldn't hear. Mm-hmm. And then priests and pastors are coming in trying to help me, and I'm kicking them out of the room going, I'm responsible for my dad's death. And so that's where I was for about 3-4 days.
What turned it around for you?
Well, one day a gentleman, a total stranger, walked in the room.
How did you know to walk in the room?
You know, I later found him. He was like a version of a street preacher, and my mother-in-law had told him about what happened, and he decided to just walk in the room.
Wow. And
I found him later, and I said, I got to thank you for coming into the hospital. And he said, it was no big deal. And I go, no, I think it was a big deal. And I said, I just want to make sure I did say that prayer with you. And he goes, oh, yeah, you were a mess, but we definitely said that prayer. And when I said that prayer, it was just powerful. I just said a prayer to admit that I was a sinner and I wanted Jesus in my life. And it was powerful. It's like the Holy Spirit just came into my life and connected to my soul, and I just exhaled all that guilt. It was very life-changing, both physically and, more importantly, spiritually.
You were still facing jail time, and you were still facing a trial. What was that like to go through? Here it is, you have a conversion experience in the hospital, and now you've got to walk it out through a court hearing.
And by the way, I'm in the court, and I'm guilty. So it was one of those nightmares where you close your eyes at night, and you're thinking about it, and when you wake up in the morning, you're thinking about it. And that's really where I had to go from just giving my life to the Lord to surrendering my life. And it was extremely powerful, because now I was like, Lord, what are you going to do? I mean, you gave me my life, you got to take it back, and I'm going to go to prison for 4 years. But I really started to get into the Word. And I specifically was in Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 and 7. It said, don't worry about anything. And I said, Lord, I'm worried about a lot. I'm worried about everything. Don't worry about anything, instead pray about everything. If you do this, you experience God's peace, which is far more wonderful than you might can understand. I received peace. So what that meant is I could sleep, and I could get up, and I could go to work, and I could get my family together, and I could meet my lawyers, and I could fight for my life. And it was extremely powerful. But the peace that I got when I was in that out-of-control situation was more peace than I probably have maybe today. Because I still try to control my life sometimes. And when I try to control my life, at that point, I was all in. Hey, Lord, I have nowhere else to go. I'm just giving it up to you. And I received that peace. And that was very powerful in terms of the journey.
Why do we do that? It seems like when we get into the really tough times, we say, Jesus, take over. And then when we get through it, say, okay, that's great. I got this now. Why do we switch?
Gosh, I would have said, it was so easy for me to accept Jesus into my life. And the question I ask is, why is it so hard for me to live with him every day? Especially when he's given me grace and the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And I don't know, I just assume it's because, it's human nature, the world we live in, but it's also why I need all those disciplines, waking up with prayer. I'm a Bible study with guys, that I've been involved with for 15 years. It's the accountability partners that I need. So there is parameters and choices that I make, that I put around me, that help me keep that relationship on an ongoing basis so I can feel that abundance. But it's a struggle, and I wish I had a great easy answer for you. I just know the tactics I need to do to keep it.
Well, let's shorten the story for people watching. You went to jail, you got out, and then you became just this amazing success. I'm not going to call it an overnight success, but it's certainly amazing how God has now taken you to levels that are frankly phenomenal. And in all of that, you were asked, well, what made the difference for you? Obviously, salvation did, but there was more to it.
You know, it was, men would come up to me, especially men, and start to say, well, how did you do it? And I didn't really think about how I was doing it when I was doing it. I had to go back and say, well, what did I do? And what choices did I make? And certain themes came out all the time. And the reality was there were certain choices that I was making every day that helped me to not be defined by my worst moment. And it was really about how did I want to be defined as something other than that accident and that tragedy that happened. And those are the choices that I started to make that allowed me to be defined as something else. One of them was the successful CEO. But just as important was husband, father, friend, teammate. All those things started to define who I was. Christian. Those were the definitions, in addition to that success I had in the business world, that were arguably even more important than just success as a business person.
You mentioned accountability. How key is that for you? And how did you put that around yourself?
Well, I describe that what I find with men mainly, but I'm sure it's with women too, is that we got some really bad advice called suck it up. You know, isolate yourself, do it on your own. Come on, do it on your own. And my attitude is I found in life that this journey is a marathon and you need to take some people along the way with you. And for me, accountability is more change I have in my life, the more accountability I need. And so I turned it around and said, you know, instead of it being something that I fought, accountability became motivational for me. Because the real reality was, you know, where do you go for your encouragement? Who do you have around you? Who's helping you along the journey? So if I'm actually meeting with you, then I can actually encourage you to accomplish the things you're trying to accomplish. One of my struggles with people is that when we meet in the morning, I say, you know, how are you doing? You say fine, and you say, Jay, how are you doing? I say fine. We pretty much only established that we're both lying at this point. So the issue is, how do I get into a dialogue where I can help you?
Right.
And how can you help me? And you're going to have some people along the way help you. Or if you isolate yourself, all bad things happen.
Talk about one of the other principles, confidence. I know some people struggle to just have confidence, but other people take it too far. And you could say they're overconfident, and that can get you into trouble too. How do you find that balance?
Well, I think, you know, if the overconfidence part becomes arrogance. And probably the biggest thing from a business perspective that I got from being a Christian was I added humility to this very assertive and aggressive, you know, persona that I had. And that humility allowed me to have followers. So without that, I don't think I would have had near the amount of followers that I had. And for me, being confident is really about two things. One, being prepared. I mean, you have to put some effort into it. You know, the more prepared you are, the more confident you are. But the other is knowing the truth. And what happens is a lot of time we'd have negative self-talk. When I was in my trial, here's how mine was. If I go to prison for 4 years, I'll lose my job. Lose my job, lose my house, lose my wife. My wife was an asset for me. You know, this is one of those better or worse times, but she stayed with me. We're married 28 years. The challenge is I could take this negative self-talk and take a bad situation and pile on and make it worse. And that's what we always do. We're always talking to ourselves. And so where's the truth?
Out of taking the risk.
Taking a risk or not doing something, procrastinating, remaining stuck. And the real challenge is know where the truth is. And for me, that and being prepared provides you the confidence, which gives you the credibility.
What's next for you?
Right now, I'm out doing a lot of executive coaching. I do a lot of keynote speaking on this subject, and I'm having fun. But it's really, for me, is how do I help leaders really be the person they need to be at work, but also the person they need to be at home, and I would say also, more importantly, in their community.
Right. Find that balance.
Find that balance.
Find that balance.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the book is called 5 Bold Choices and Rise Above Your Circumstances, Redefine Your Life. It's available wherever books are sold. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Story.